TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
This is Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. You know, this year marks a milestone for the iconic Texas Music Café. And here to tell us more, Chris Ermoian, who started this thing back in 1997. And did you ever think when, I think it started out as a project CD for school or something.
Yeah, actually.
Then it would become a PBS show and on and on.
It's definitely changed over the years for sure. It's grown right along with the need. But yeah, we started back in, actually about 1994. The precursor was a CD project, and the whole goal of that was to get airplay for all the local musicians who couldn't get airplay. Clear Channel came in and bought up all the radio stations, and they stopped playing local music.
I remember when that happened, yeah.
Yeah, so that put I was running a recording studio at the time and had probably put out 100 records, and none of those people could get any airplay. And it's really frustrating when you put all your hard work and you write the songs, you pour yourself into it, and then can't get airplay. My brothers and I had released some music and took it into the radio station and got feedback from the local radio guys. And I said, "What do you think?" And they said, "This is amazing. We love it." And I said, "Great. When can you air it?" And they said, "Never." Yeah. So I began tracking that backwards. And they said, if Elvis Presley walked in today and said, "I've been on an island for the last 50 years making records," they still couldn't play his stuff because he wasn't on the list. So and finding out that getting on that list was near impossible, I found a way over, around, under, or through it, which was started with a CD project and eventually ended up as being a television show on PBS, and then a television show that played in 170 countries all over the world. So it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, and you've had some amazing musicians perform in those now,
everybody
25 years.
Almost everybody. There's really only been one artist that's from Texas, and we do record people from all over the planet. The farthest would be Armenia. Had a band come all the way from Armenia to Waco, Texas to play on the show.
What genre of music? Was it country?
Heavy metal. Yeah, they're heavy metal. Actually, the band System of a Down that everybody knows that's from Armenia were the opening act for these guys. They're called Vorden Karmir, and they're huge. You look them up on the internet. They've got 3 million views on everything they do. And of course, they came to the Hippodrome, and we had 70 people come see them. And I said, "What was that like?" And they said, "It's good. It's like when we play in garage when we first start." So, but yeah, we've had pretty much everybody over the years. I mean, to anybody who hasn't been on the show, I guess that's a shout out to hit me up. But one artist that I have always wanted to record, a formative album for almost any Texas artist, including Lyle Lovett that was just in Waco.
Right.
If you ask Lyle what his favorite record is and most influential, he would tell you Willis Allen Ramsey, who only put out one record, and that's been probably almost 40 years ago. And but he has influenced every major singer-songwriter, Texas-based artist that exists. And not many people know about the guy. And I've always wanted to record him. He moved off to Colorado and pretty much stopped touring, so I kind of had to take him off the list for a while, but he just started playing again. Texas Monthly's about to do a big article on him, and he's coming to Waco on May 14th. Yeah, we're bringing him to the new studio we have over at 600 Columbus Avenue.
Okay, so let's talk about the venue, because has it moved around? It's obviously you say a new studio.
I am a nomad. I'm a musical nomad.
Yeah, where did it first start out? How did Texas Music Cafe get its beginnings?
So you might remember the public television station that we had in Waco years ago was called KCTF. I worked there starting way back. This will tell my age, but back in 1988 was my first job in television. And I had always had a vision to do a music show. Austin City Limits, is still today an icon.
Yeah, that's a big show, yeah.
And I thought, we need to have that right here in Waco that features smaller musicians. ACL now does Robert Plant and Elvis Costello and huge
big names.
Yeah, so the guys from Austin and Dallas and Waco that are really good, pretty much it's really hard, almost impossible to get on. So I said, well, I want to start a show in Waco that does exactly that. Well, when I left that TV station, I decided that's one of the things I was going to do was make that happen. And they were the first place to air it, so it aired on public television. And the very first big leap for that was one of the guys from the national PBS affiliate came through, saw the show, and went, hey, what is this thing? And they said, oh, it's just some local show. You wouldn't be interested in it. And the guy said, no, this is really cool. This reminds me of what Austin City Limits used to look like. And the guy toured our studio and said, how'd you like to put it out nationally? And I was just a kid at the time, but I was like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
Not knowing what all that meant and all the work, and not knowing that I'd be doing it 25 years later.
Isn't that something?
So yes, we've had just about everybody that we featured over the years, and it's gone through all kinds of incarnations.
You've had some big names, though, on it.
We have. Probably the biggest name that people recognize, no matter where on the planet, is Willie Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
And I owe him a lot of credit because Willie is one of the artists that didn't need our help, and we needed his help. I chased him down for 6 months. I went trying to go through his lawyers and attorneys to get him to sign off on allowing him to play on the show, and it just didn't happen. So we showed up. We were actually asked by the city of Hillsborough when their courthouse burned down, and Willie Nelson single-handedly helped pay to have that courthouse rebuilt by doing a couple of concerts. And they invited us to tape it, and Willie was there, and he said, oh, don't go through those guys. They're jerks, and they'll take forever. And he signed off.
He said, yeah, I know.
He signed off and said, I have anything you want to use of mine. After we explained who we were and the mission behind what we're doing, he said, you have my permission to use anything you want. And that really helped us out because to add his name to our roster and to have his trust, there wasn't anybody that wouldn't work with us at that point. So, yeah, he's
gave you credibilities.
It did, and I think we've recorded him about 5 or 6 times now. I don't know if he knows my name or not. He always shakes my hand and is like,
I bet he does.
Gives me a nod, but I don't know. I don't know if he remembers who I am. I probably.
I remember when he played at Rock and Heart Ranch for the Heart Association for one of their big, and I was so impressed with how much he just loves to perform. He was getting on up there. He'd already done a long show, bending over, shaking everybody's hand, and then get up and play another song. Yeah. Because he just loved the music. So let's talk about the music. Now, this is all going to be original music. Do you ever record people to do covers of other songs?
We don't. Unfortunately, we don't. Yeah, a lot of people.
Why do you say unfortunately? I mean, it's kind of almost a purist.
I don't have anything against doing cover music or bands that do that. I think it's important, especially to learn song structure of other people's music.
Right.
My thought has always been, if you're going to do a song that you didn't write, do it differently or make it your own or do it unique. It's really heartbreaking to hear somebody try to copy.
Right.
What we like to call "Sweet Home Margaritaville," which is the a song that technically doesn't exist, but to copy someone else's music. I've seen a lot of musicians, very talented musicians, waste their entire career by doing exactly that, by never becoming their own person, their own musician. And even if you don't have it in you to write, partner with somebody that does. I mean, Bernie Taupin is Elton John's right arm when it comes to writing. And there's plenty of good writers in this city that don't perform. Unfortunately, nowadays in music, people like their musical stars, to be skinny and good looking, and not everybody who writes good songs is. I guess Billy Joe Shaver got started early on enough in it to where people back then didn't care if you were pretty to play country music. But now, gosh, it's really hard unless you're you got to be the whole package to be able to get any airplay.
Well, and of course he's passed on, and I think the one of the great contributions Texas Music Café has is that it's like an archive of great musicians.
We don't really know exactly how much footage we have, but it's somewhere a guesstimation is about 10,000 hours of footage.
Where do you store? I mean, how? I'm sure
It's a
digital.
secret. I'd have to kill you if I told
You'd
you.
have to kill me if you.
Yeah.
Well, then don't tell me.
No,
That's
we
okay.
do. I have been in the process of moving
But I know
it.
you've been doing it long enough that you had hard copies or
I do.
whatever.
Every tape format that's ever existed, we have.
You have done it, yeah.
Yeah, that keeps changing, so we keep changing
That's
with it.
true.
But yeah, just archiving it, keeping track of it, moving it to digital. Just the hard drive space to be able to hold it all.
Yeah.
It's a lot. When someone sees one of our videos on YouTube, I know that they don't think about all the work, anything from the hours that it took. I think about this recording session we did in Big Bend, in the canyons down in Big Bend. We were there like 7 days. It took, a day to get there, a couple days, 8 hours of driving, and then you go down in the canyon and record all this music and then bring it back and edit it. And every shoot has a story behind it. It really does. And
I'm sure.
And we're talking about getting Rogue Media and Mike Hamilton to help us out with a podcast. He kind of said, hey, you really need to do that. And I've never thought about it, but I do think there's a story behind every single one of those shoots, if not more stories than that. But and luckily I still have enough memory to be able to store all of that. And for some reason I can recall most of the data from those shoots because they're memorable in some way.
Well, let's talk about your early days. When did you know you wanted to be a musician?
Well, I mean, it wasn't, we just grew up doing it. My brothers and I, my dad was a barbershop quartet singer.
Musical family, huh?
And that was always, the arts were always important in my family. When we moved to Waco, I lived in Detroit, Chicago, and Memphis before here. And when we came here, which was 1977.
Well, this was a backwater.
Yeah,
compared to where you've been.
Well, I mean, just those were all great music cities. I mean,
Yeah, no
I
kidding.
bet that in my mother's womb in 1968 in Detroit, she heard a lot of really good music that
bet
absorbed
she
into
did.
her womb and transferred to me. And I love all styles of music, always have. So I don't know. I guess it's just, I think all of us are blessed with a gift of some kind. I mean, I've never met a person that I didn't find that didn't have some redeeming gift that was God given, and that gift is different for different people. And for me, it's just I've always had an eye and an ear for music, and that doesn't mean being the best musician in the room. I figured out really quick that I wasn't. My brothers and I played a bunch of coffee houses up and down 35 many years ago, and we're good. We weren't the greatest, but we're a pretty good band. We did all originals and 3-part harmonies like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and had a unique sound. And but we quickly found out that there were so many talented artists in Texas that I really decided I could better serve this planet by getting the heck out of the way and allowing other musicians that spotlight. So that is what I spent the last 25 years focusing on, is trying to find the best, most unique, and most original talent, and then shining a light on it and sharing it with other people. And sometimes when I get bogged down in the work and all that, and it is a lot of work and a lot of expense and a lot of time, and people have suffered and sacrificed, not only my crew, but my family, and of doing without me for this mission. But then I get reminded when I put together a show and I stand up on stage and introduce the band and they just lay it on the line. And it's different when it's going back to the original music thing, when it's songs that you wrote that you're passionate about. When it's from your gut and it's from your heart, it comes out differently. You know, when you're playing somebody else's song that you didn't write, you're just regurgitating something else. So that passion, when you see it happen on stage, it is different. It's a different thing than seeing a cover band. And audiences have to be educated. And that's a big part of what we've done for years, is educating audiences. When you've eaten hamburger your entire life and never had a steak, when you finally taste a steak, you can now recognize it and go, wow, this is what music is supposed to be. Watching that passionate artist share something that is the most deepest personal thing that came out of their guts and their soul, and then they share that for an audience, and having that audience respond to it. It's a magical thing. It's a three-pronged magical thing. The artist is sharing that deep inside information, and they're doing it in a way that is the equivalent of a doctorate because they've spent 20 years doing it,
living their life.
and then an audience who listens and appreciates. And I'm not going to knock any other local venues around here, but what we do, it's not a loud beer party scene. That's not what we're about. If you're there to go drink beer, go somewhere else. Drink beer, scream over top of the music. I want people to get excited about it, but I want them to get excited about it because it moves you on a cellular level. It speaks to your soul. And I think that most people who come in and see our live shows recognize there is something different that's happening here. And Waco doesn't have that other than what we're doing. And I've been absent from doing live performance shows in Waco for a long time. Like you said, on the road. The TV show, we pulled the plug on Waco in about 2001 and went on the road with it and took it all over. I was trying to support a venue in Waco, and we had invites to go to Bass Performance Hall and to Cheatham Street Warehouse where George Strait started out. And there wasn't a venue that would tell us, no, you can't come in and put our place on television. So we packed it up and took it on the road. And I've been doing that now for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years at least. And I'm getting too old to do it. It hurts. It hurts too much.
It's a lot of work.
It is. So it's a lot easier to have it set and on site. And I'm really thankful to Corey Dickman and Rogue Media and Nexus Esports. And those guys opened up their facility and their space for us to do concerts. They wanted to do concerts out of there, and I've been able to come in and put on some really good shows and help them out in the process. But they've been really great hosts. They have been bent over backwards to make us feel at home in their space.
I know even some of them are kind of talent searches.
Yeah, we have conducted, there's musicians at every level need encouragement.
Yeah.
So, we've done some open mic stuff. Again, I wanted it to be all original. And again, encouraging people to partner. If you don't write songs, partner with someone that does.
And maybe you'll network.
Yeah.
Even at one of those events.
I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen recently.
We're going to take a short break. Come back. We're going to learn more about how you're celebrating this 25th anniversary for Texas Music Cafe. So you stay with us. And we're back with Chris Ermoian with Texas Music Cafe that is celebrating 25 years. You have a venue in Waco now. How often do these shows happen?
We are taping shows pretty much every Saturday.
Okay, that's a lot.
It is, and we do 3 bands a night typically. Usually we'll start out with some kind of local, regional, and then national act. I've got bands right now lined up in the next 2 months that are coming from Colorado, Los Angeles, Nashville, all over the place. So
I bet people by and large don't know
they don't
what you guys are doing, and what that means just to the economy. Because now instead of you being on the road taking your show to these different locales, they're coming here, spending money here, staying in hotels, the whole bit.
True.
That's big.
I think 2019 we were doing some shows in Waco, and we hired 47 local artists of different types, makeup artists, set designers, lighting people, sound engineers. Nobody got paid a lot, I'll just tell you, but 47 local artists all worked on it and got paid something for being involved. And then that's not counting the musicians themselves. And then we probably featured 50 or 60 musicians in that lineup. So it does have an impact on this city. It's part of the city that's, I feel, has been missing for a long time. I mean, there's music going on here, and I'm really thankful to every music venue that's surviving and getting by. But, like I said, we go to so much more depth than just throwing up a microphone and having live music performed. When you're talking about making a TV show, you see a movie credit and there's 100 names at the end of a movie because it takes a lot of people to do it. So I've been so fortunate. If I had an unlimited budget, I could not have hired a better crew than the folks that I have right now. I mean, they're all local artists that just came to us that want to be a part of what we're doing. Mark Kieran is a local painter. He's known as a painter, but the guy works with leather, and turns out he's an amazing photographer. a guy named Bruce Byers, who you've all seen the truck that's on Valley Mills Drive, the water truck with the water flowing out of it. That's one of his designs. I think it's one of the most coolest and iconic pieces of art in this city, and nobody thinks about him really as being an artist. But man, I'm lucky enough to get that guy as a regular camera guy on my show. The list goes on. I've got
how many cameras do you shoot this with?
typically 5.
Wow.
We've got 5 cameras. Our director started with our show when he was 18 years old. He's still with us. So I have just a fantastic crew that works their butt off, and they do it because they love doing it. You know, there's been times where we made money at it, but most of the time it's been a labor of love.
Yeah. But I bet you've got sponsors, right?
No, I have 0 right now.
You have the opportunity.
That's not true. I shouldn't say that. Like Nexus, who is barely making any money back off of what we're doing right now. There's a lot of everyone that's contributing is sponsoring to the show. But
yeah, that's true.
As far as Waco or any money that's come to us, and I've approached several, it's been extremely disappointing, if I can be frank about it, is Waco has not supported music or the arts in that way, original music in the way that I feel it needs to be done, because it's a component to the city that's missing. Austin has 130 new people that move to Austin per day. And part of the reason why is because it's just a cool place to live. It's fun. Yeah. And Waco's doing better. But
now I've heard you say Waco could become musically like Seattle or Austin. Do you still think that?
I do think that. I've always thought that. That's one of the reasons I came back here. A good friend of mine, David Tinsley, that used to run the Elite Café, which is now the Magnolia Table. Yeah, so he had T-shirts made up 30 years ago that said Waco is what Austin was, and he truly believed it. And I bought into that vision as well. And I believe that we have all the right components here. I feel like it's heartbreaking when I see the city, and whatever organization it is that will put $1.5 million to extend a railroad track 50 feet for a new company that moves to town and then stays in business 2 years and is gone. What we've been doing with Texas Music Cafe has been around 25 years. If that's not proof enough to say this is something that is stable and going to be around, I don't know what else I can do to do that. I mean, either you believe in it or not, and it's
so folks can see these shows on YouTube. You're not on PBS anymore.
Right. Actually, I just hired a guy that was the program director for the PBS station out of Killeen. He said he worked for PBS for 15 years, and the most enjoyable part of it was working with Texas Music Cafe. Yeah. And I said, well, why don't you go to work helping us out? So we are planning on launching a new season in August, I believe, on PBS. And the PBS...
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it's probably going to end back up there. But really... the coolest place to be able to watch it, because one, you can watch just the acts that you want to see. And I understand, we do punk rock to folk to country to conjunto. Not everybody's into everything, but it's all there. We just started putting up tracks, and I've got about 1,000 songs up there now. And you can watch it 24/7. I mean, I looked at the stats, and we got people in Denmark that are watching us at 3 a.m. our time.
Of course, yeah.
But I think about 40,000 views a month on average right now that we're getting on YouTube. And they're people from all over. So a lot of them are locals, but these are local. Most of them are Central Texas-based artists, people that you can go see in a club around here, and they're getting a lot of airplay and a lot of worldwide attention. And that's a great place to see it, is YouTube.
Yeah. Of all the people that you've recorded, I mean, who kind of rises to the top as somebody maybe obscure that you discovered?
There's a ton of
people know who that is.
I could give you a list of 100 names that you've never heard of that are incredible in some unique way. But I think Ruthie Foster's from Waco. She's from this area. I went to MCC with her, and I've really watched her career grow over the years. I feel like she's kind of a poster child for what we do, because she wasn't famous when we started, and it was just her and a cheap guitar. Yeah. And I've seen her now to where every time she plays, it's, she's been nominated for 2 Grammys, and every time that she plays, she makes good money, and 5,000 people show up now. And
that's great.
We played a very small part of that. I would not take any of the credit for that. because she is amazing, and she would have got there on her own, but I was happy to be able to help, to be a stepping stone for her to do that.
You got to have help along the way.
Yeah, and she's, I mean,
That's
she
great.
deserves it. Ruthie is one. Monty Montgomery is a guy that's, everybody knows him as a guitar player, but he's a great songwriter and singer. He's been one. Slade Cleaves is another guy that's now kind of big time. He on the Americana scene, and he, you know, his first week in Texas, I think he played Texas Music Café. He just moved here from Maine, and he's now been in Texas for 25 years, and he's doing great and making a living doing it. And that's kind of, you know, one of the things we set out was to take musicians who are struggling and get them to a point to where they're at least making a living doing what they love doing. And we've been, you know, we played that role pretty well, I think.
Yeah, you've been able to do that.
Myself?
Yeah?
Well, no, I don't make my living off of performing. I think it's important that our crew, most of our crew are either musicians or artists, and they have an understanding of what it's like to be on the stage. I think that's one of the things that makes our show special and better in a lot of ways, is because we do understand what it's like to be on both sides of that. This is really weird for me to be on this side of the camera for a change, but it's important to know how to do that. And yeah.
What's the best advice you ever got as a performer?
As a performer,
Uh-huh.
the same advice that I give to musicians all the time. I said there are two things that I've seen over all the musicians, thousands of musicians we've worked with now. The two consistent things that I see that are present in all the ones that are successful is, number one, be a person that people want to work with. Working with Willie Nelson, was one of the easiest going, nicest human beings you'll ever want to meet. Everybody wants to work with him, and it's not because he's that great. It's because he's easy to work with and a likable guy. So that's number one. And two, the second thing, and I would say this about Willie or about Ruthie Foster or a lot of great musicians, is every time you get up to perform, whether it's 5 people, 2 people, or 5,000 people, you lay everything you got at that moment on the stage, 110%. Those are the two best pieces of advice you can give to any musician. And
Don't phone it in,
no,
because they're going to pick up on it.
sure. Give the best you got at that given moment. And sure, you got good days and bad days, but you give the best you can on that moment.
Yeah, now you focus on original songwriting too. What about as a songwriter? What's good advice that you've gotten or can give in that arena?
You know, I don't know. Every songwriter's method is different. It's not. I haven't figured that one out. I mean, Billy Joe Shaver had an 8th grade education.
Yeah.
He was not a smart man by those means, but you know, that guy had Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, all regarded as some of the best songwriters on the planet, have done an entire album of Billy Joe's songs, and the guy had an 8th grade education. It goes back to doing it from the heart. Most of the songs I wrote were influenced by whatever was going on in my life at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. There's plenty of people that can tell you a lot more about songwriting. I did it enough to learn that, experience that, be a musician. 2 years ago, I kind of took a break from TMC for about 2 years. We still made shows. I've never stopped making shows, but I did pursue my own musical career, which I'd given up or set aside.
You're a guitarist, vocalist.
Vocalist, songwriter, and I played in a band called Dirty Echoes, and we did a 10-day tour of the United States. We did 2 records, got signed to a record label out of Austin called Steady Boy Records, and same label that Rocky Erickson was on, and a lot of other old guys like me. But it was a good experience. It was good to reconnect with being a musician and how hard that is. That 10-day tour was rough. 8 hours between each gig.
You really appreciate what
it did. It
these
made
guys
me,
are going through.
It made me really respect the folks that are doing that.
Right.
And it was a good reminder for me. And when the pandemic hit, it was time to refocus back on TMC. So we did that. And we produced, in the beginning of the pandemic, we worked with Creative Waco and Rogue Media and Lindsay Littman and Keep Waco Loud and a whole slew of folks to produce a ABC show where we did shot new material during the pandemic, which is really weird and difficult to do. And then we used a lot of TMC's archives. But so we did that. You know, we haven't ever stopped. whenever I didn't have enough money to pay enough people and put on a full show, we did 2 seasons of radio shows. 10 years into it, I had some medical issues, and I basically was going to quit. And the Center for Texas Music History in San Marcos reached out and said, "Hey, you didn't turn out a season." I said, "Hey, I didn't know anybody was paying attention." And they said, "What you're doing is capturing a slice of Texas music history that nobody else is doing." And they said, "Well, we want you to keep doing it." And I didn't know who they were. It was Dr. Gary Hartman is the guy. And I said, "Hey, buddy, I don't know who you are, but I said, if it's that important
if you
to you."
got some money for me, that'd be
That was
great.
what I said. I said, "Hey, man, if it's that important to you, you can fund my next season." And they went, "Okay."
Oh, my goodness.
And just like that, we're
Just
off
like
running
that,
again.
yeah.
So,
Well, you are, it is such an important work that you have done in
Thank you.
preserving.
I appreciate
these-
that you
this
think so.
music. No, absolutely, absolutely. We could go on and on, but I like to end these little visits with it's my version of the questionnaire that James Lipson would use on Inside the Actors Studio. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. One is, what is your favorite word?
Squeegee.
That's a.
Squeegee. It's my favorite word in the American language.
What about your least favorite word?
Kombucha. I don't know if that's an American word, but the drink.
Yeah, have
And
you had it?
I have. It upsets my stomach every
I
time.
was going to say or anyway.
Kombucha. It sounds like the sound you make after you drink it.
After you drink
Kombucha.
What turns you on creatively, emotionally, or spiritually?
Wow. Seeing other artists that are passionate about what they do. I mentioned about talent. If I have one talent in the whole world, it's the ability to see and believe in the talent and ability of others. And I do feel like I've never met a person that walked this planet that didn't have a reason for being here. And a lot of times they don't know what that is. So sometimes I've been able to help identify that. Even the people didn't know. The guy who's Justin Timberlake and Beyonce's producer used to work for me when he was a Baylor student. And, he didn't, I don't know that he believed he could do it for a living, but he's done all right for himself.
I love the story that you told to Katie and Jacob Green on Keep Waco Loud's podcast. It was done a few years ago about Danny Thomas. I'm going to kind of derail my little questionnaire for you to tell that story because that was great.
Well, it's your show. You can go anywhere you want to go with it. Yeah, I met a songwriter that every song that the guy played brought me to tears, and he was a garbage man in San Antonio and not attractive by any means. This guy made me look like Brad Pitt. That's how good looking this guy was. But he just a great songwriter, and he usually wrote for other people. But I wanted the songs from his perspective, so we featured him on our show, and he wrote us letters for years thanking us for all the people that learned about his music through the show. And there's a ton of great songwriters out there that their music will never get heard because they're not pretty enough or because they can't quit their day gig picking up trash or whatever it is to go be a songwriter. So yeah, it's been an honor and a privilege to find people like that and shine a light on the songs that they're writing. I mean, really good songwriting is all about personal experience that others can relate to. Whether it's a breakup or a loss of everything important to you or the gaining of everything that's important to you or an understanding. And that doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be built in a room in Nashville by a team of songwriters. In fact, it's usually not. It's usually comes out of a person through personal experience and tragedy. And Danny Thomas was one of those artists. If you've never heard him, he's kind of hard to find because it's not a pretty common name, Danny Thomas. But I think I got some videos of his up on Texas Music Café, youtube.com/Texas Music Cafe. If you search him, you might find him.
You'll want to look that up for sure. All right, back to the question. So what turns you off creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
Ego. Basically, I think the root of everyone's sins, and we're all guilty of it, but it's basically when you let yourself get bigger than anything else in your own life or those around you. I can almost predict when an artist shows up to perform how that night's going to go based on how they treat people. before they ever open their mouth or sing a note, the way that they treat my crew and the way that they treat the people in the building, if it's like, hey, you're all here to serve me and blah, 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 or they just come in and treat people like dirt, it's usually not going to go well. So humility is an important thing in successful musicians.
What sound do you love the most?
Sound in general. I love sound. I always have. Sound is different in different spaces. The same sound can be different in different spaces. I think that sound is underrated. There's a series that I could never get launched off the ground, but it is basically a deep dive into sound itself. A lot of other cultures use sound for healing. Actually vibrations of sound and has an ability to change mood, has an ability to heal, we use sound for imaging, for healing in our hospitals. But there are other cultures and religions that have used sound for years and years. I mean, what religion doesn't have sound incorporated into what it is they do? So I think we still don't value sound itself enough. That's one of the things with the Texas Music Café. We try to create a physical environment that is conducive to actually listening. Now, I want you to pay attention to that, because next time you hear live music, I don't care where it is, if it's at a bar, if it's on the radio, pay attention to the people's perception of how the reverence they give to that sound, to that music. We're trying to create an environment where the sound and the song and the music is pinnacle. Secondary to, we want people to have a good time. We want people to experience what it's like to be on a television show, to be a part of being in a television show, being in that audience, because they are part of the equation. But making the sound and the reverence that goes along with that is really important to us.
Do you have a least favorite sound?
No, I'm not real weird about chalkboards and stuff like that,
That's good.
I don't know.
That's great. It's the first time I've ever gotten that answer. What other profession would you have loved to try?
I would love to do voice work, which you've actually done, but I'd love to do voices like Mel Blanc from, was it not Looney Tunes? Yeah, it was Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Being a voiceover artist would be wonderful. Just being able to try on different voices and like The Simpsons or that kind of something like that. I think that'd be a fun gig.
What job do you know you would never want to do?
Oh my gosh, anything with numbers, like an accountant. When I die, if I go to hell, it's going to be a small room with a desk with taxes stacked to the ceiling. And
you got to add these up.
For eternity, yes, that would be the worst job.
Okay, well, let's assume that that's not where you're going to go. My final question. What do you want to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Good. Thank you, my good and faithful servant. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, and feel free to join the band.
I love it. So congratulations to you, Chris. Texas Music Cafe, 25 years. And again, where can folks go hear the show live? Where can they see it?
So all the streaming channels, audio streaming channels, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen, we are placing new audio content weekly. A lot of these are original recordings of Willie Nelson made 20 years ago that have never been heard. They've never been put out, and we're talking 10,000 hours, so that well is not going to run dry anytime soon. So you can check it on any of the streaming channels. Also, if you like the visual side to it, YouTube has got 1,000 songs up there right now, and we're adding new stuff daily.
Yeah, that's great.
And there's more where that came from, because every day I meet new and talented artists.
Yeah, and you have a show coming up?
This Saturday. No, I'm sorry. The 30th is our next one. I took some time off to go take care of an aunt in Arizona. When I was a kid, I kind of ran away from home and ran away to California for a while and lived with an aunt and uncle. And she's never needed my help. And recently she had a knee surgery, and it's the first time she's ever asked for help. So I dropped everything and went to go help her out. And our next show is on April 30th, and we've got 3 acts lined up for that. And I'll have to look and see. I have so many in my head right now. But yeah, beginning April 30th, every Saturday moving forward, more new shows.
Sort of a big celebration for the 25th? Like a big event for that?
We are planning on doing some type of probably an outdoor music fest that will be maybe all day or 2 days of music.
Wow.
It's a big undertaking, and I've got several people that are smarter than me working on it right now. So
Good. Well, you need to celebrate it for sure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it is a milestone. There's, as a kid, I worked at Paget's, which was the 150-year-old, one of the oldest businesses in Waco. And before that, I worked
Saddles and buggy whips and things like that.
They go back that far.
Yeah.
And I worked at Cox's as a kid, department store, which was also had been around 100 years in Waco. I hope that when I'm dead and gone, that my crew and all the good folks that I've met here pick it up and run with the ball when I'm dead and gone, because I think the work is important. I think that the music is important enough, and I think I don't want to wake up in a world where the only music I get to hear is a Journey cover band or an Aerosmith cover band over and over again. I lived through that stuff the first time, and it was great in the 80s when I lived through it, but I don't want to hear it again every day for the rest of my life. I want to hear something new every single day.
Yeah, and you are making sure that that's happening for folks. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Ann. I appreciate it.
All the best, and congratulations again.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you for being with us. We hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.